She cheated and left me for my best friend. She had no idea I was secretly making $500, $0 a year. Hello, everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. She cheated on me and left me for my best friend, completely unaware that I'd been secretly earning $500, $0 a year. I remember exactly when decided to blow up our marriage. She was sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling through her phone like nothing was wrong, acting like she had no cares at all. I had just come in from work, ready to drop my bag and relax when she looked up and casually announced, "I want a divorce." There was no warning, no gentle lead-in, just a blunt, cold statement like she was commenting on the weather, delivered without any remorse. I froze for a second, unsure if I'd heard her right. "Excuse me," I asked, my voice calm on the surface, but inside I felt a storm brewing. "I said I wanna divorce," she repeated, her tone as if I was just too slow to get it the first time. Instead of feeling angry or devastated, I was stunned by her audacity. "Divorce," I echoed, the word feeling heavy after everything we'd gone through together. The real shock, though, was the reason she gave. She said she couldn't keep living like this. Crossing her arms, she added that she needed someone who actually works and contributes, someone who pulls their weight. She claimed this wasn't the life she signed up for. I blinked, trying not to laugh. She didn't work. I'd built my career from scratch, earning a six-figure salary and laying the foundation for a future most people could only dream of. But she had never once inquired about how I made my money or shown any interest in my work. I guess she thought I just coasted along, barely scraping by. I leaned against the counter, observing her as she sat there so confident and sure. She seemed convinced she was making the right choice. "All right," I said simply, setting my bag down. She tilted her head in surprise. "All right," she repeated. "Yeah," I responded evenly. "If you want a divorce, I won't stand in your way." For a moment her face flickered with uncertainty, but she quickly replaced it with her usual smug smile. "Good, because I've already spoken to a lawyer. You'll need to move out by the end of the month, out of my house." The nerve of her was almost laughable, but I didn't argue. If she wanted me gone, I'd leave, just not yet. "Fair enough," I said as I headed upstairs. I could feel her eyes on me, waiting for me to explode or beg her to stay. I gave her nothing. In our bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed, letting it all sink in. This wasn't just about divorce. This was about control. Wanted to feel in charge, to paint me as the failure and maybe guilt me into fighting for her. She thought I'd be begging for a second chance. But she didn't know me that well. Over the next few days, her passive-aggressive behavior was almost a criticizing how I folded laundry, how I spent my evenings, even how I brewed my coffee. It was like she was justifying her decision by turning me into the villain. And then there was my so-called best friend. At first, I didn't pay much attention to how she kept mentioning his name. Said this, suggested that. But soon it became obvious he was more than just a friend in her eyes. I didn't confront her. I wasn't ready to tip my hand. Instead, I let her believe she was in control, that I was a clueless, passive husband blinded by the obvious. One evening, as I packed a suitcase with essentials, leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, a smirk on her face. "So, have you figured out where you're going to stay?" she asked, her tone dripping with condescension. I zipped up my bag and turned to face her. "Don't worry about me, I'll be just fine." She huffed, clearly annoyed by my calm. "Good, because and I are planning a dinner party here next weekend. It would be awkward if you were still hanging around dinner at my house with my best friend." The audacity was almost impressive. "Don't worry," I said, shouldering my bag. "I'll be gone long before then." As I passed her, I caught a glimpse of her smug smile. She thought she'd won. She thought I was just going to walk away defeated. But what didn't realize was that she had just handed me the match to light her own fuse. I was going to watch her burn along with. Sometimes the best revenge isn't shouting or fighting, it's silence. Patience. Letting her dig her own grave while I quietly lay the groundwork to bury her. And trust me, I was just getting started. Betrayal's a sneaky thing. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks or fanfare. It stealthily slips in through casual conversations, harmless gestures, until one day you realize everything you thought was solid has been chipped away. His request for a divorce was the first crack. After that, everything about her and started to crumble, the illusion of their perfect life, their carefully curated image. I should have seen the signs, but hindsight's a cruel teacher. At first it was small, casually mentioning his name more often, saying said this, recommended that. I nodded, not thinking much of it. After all, he was our close friend. But then it became more frequent. Her tone warmed whenever she spoke of him, and I felt my stomach twist. The first real red flag came one Saturday afternoon, after she returned from a lunch with her cheeks flushed and she was laughing like I hadn't seen in years. When I asked what was so funny, she waved me off, saying, "Oh, it's just something said. You wouldn't understand." How long had I been on the outside looking in? The answer hit me earlier than I'd admit. I'd started noticing more. The sly texts she'd hurriedly lock away, the way she dressed up more whenever she planned to meet. She'd claim they were just friends, that I was overthinking. Overthinking was the favorite excuse of anyone hiding something. But I didn't confront her. What would be the point? She'd deny it, spin a story so I'd appear paranoid. So I let her think I was blind, too busy with my own life to notice hers unraveling. The real blow came when it appeared suddenly at my house, uninvited. I was packing, trying to fit what I needed into suitcases, when I heard the doorbell. Opening it, I found my so-called best friend grinning confidently. Without waiting, he strode inside as if we were still close. "My man," he said, like we hadn't just been betraying each other. "How's it going?" I stared, trying to keep my patience. "What do you want?" I asked, voice even. He leaned casually against the wall, full of charm. "Just checking in. Said you're moving out, so I thought I'd see if you needed any help." The nerve, help from the guy moving into my house. I answered curtly, "I've got this handled," then turned back to packing. Lingered oddly, and I saw the wheels turning in his head. He wasn't just here to check in. He was here to rub it in, to stake his claim. "Listen," he said, voice softening, "I know this must be tough, but stuff happens. Life's unpredictable, right?" I looked directly at him, taking a slow step closer, forcing him to meet my gaze. "Yeah, things happen, and sometimes they come back to bite you." For a moment he faltered, his confident smile slipping, replaced by something close to uncertainty. I didn't wait for him to recover. I turned back to my suitcase, dismissing him completely. "You've always been a cool guy," he said awkwardly, retreating toward the door. "No hard feelings, right?" I didn't respond. Silent strength is a powerful thing, especially when someone's desperate for a reaction. Left without another word, and as his car disappeared down the street, I exhaled slowly, realizing I'd been holding my breath. That night, lying in the bed I'd soon leave behind, I replayed the months, missed signals, lies, betrayals. I could reacted with anger, demanded answers, or called them out. But what would that have accomplished? They'd already dismissed me as insignificant, a mere footnote in their story. What they didn't realize was that I'd been paying attention all along, taking mental notes, planning my next move. If and thought they could ride off into the sunset without consequences, they were in for a harsh awakening. Because betrayal doesn't end when the truth is revealed, it's when the real game begins. And I was more than ready to win. Divorce, such a small word for something so messy. It sounds simple, final, but I realized something as I walked into that courtroom. This wasn't her end, it was her victory. Lap, a celebration of her so-called upgrade. Came dressed to impress, in a tailored dress that screamed sophistication, flashing a confident smile that made my stomach turn. Not far behind her was, lurking like a shadow. He didn't show up in court, but his presence was enough to speak volumes. Wasn't just leaving me. She was flaunting her betrayal as if it was some badge of honor. "Let's not drag this out," she said as we sat across from each other at the negotiation table. "I don't want this to be any harder than it has to be." She thought she'd already made it hard by stomping on years of marriage like a worn-out rug she couldn't wait to replace. I met her gaze and responded evenly, "I don't plan to make it difficult." I signed every document with no hesitation. She blinked, confused. "You're okay with all this?" "Why wouldn't I be? It's just stuff," I said, keeping my tone light. "You can have everything." For a fleeting moment, Doubt flickered across her face, but she quickly masked it with her usual smugness. She believed she was walking away with the whole package, what mattered to her. But what she didn't realize was that the house wasn't even mine. It was a rental I'd used as a workspace when I started freelancing years ago. The savings she thought she was taking, a fraction of my wealth, the real money, hidden in investment accounts she couldn't even find. Once all the papers were signed and the process wrapped up, she leaned back, satisfied. "Well, I'm glad we handled this like adults," she said, voice patronizing. I simply nodded, holding back a laugh. A week later, I packed up and left the house she'd so desperately wanted. I took nothing, just handed her the furniture, the decor, even the fancy kitchen gadgets she'd never used. Let her have her spoils. Wasted no time moving in. A neighbor sent me a photo of him unloading boxes, standing on the porch with that same smug smile. They probably thought they were building some perfect little life. Little did they know the storm brewing right outside their view. What didn't realize was I'd already begun gathering proof of her affair with months before the divorce. Photos, texts, even GPS history, showing their frequent lunches at a hotel nearby. I could gone public, blown everything up in court, and I considered it, but I chose patience, because I wanted karma to do the work for me in its own time with front row seats. In the weeks that followed, I started my new life while and paraded their relationship publicly, convinced they were happy. I didn't respond to a single call or message. My silence was like a dagger. They knew I was watching. Then a mutual friend tipped me off about a housewarming party and were throwing. She was so desperate for validation. She was staging their perfect life, showing off photos of dinners and vacations more fake than real. But cracks appeared. The dinners grew sporadic, the vacations disappeared, and their smiles looked strained. Rumors spread wasn't as polished anymore. Her expensive hair and designer clothes were replaced with cheaper brands, and once a flashy show-off began recycling his outfits from years ago. Soon, gossip turned into reality. One day, a friend called laughing and told me, "You'll love this, and are behind on rent, not just a little, but by 3 months. The landlord's knocking on their door." That was poetic. Justice had fought to keep that house in the divorce, only to find she couldn't afford it. Her biggest symbol of success crumbling. Her financial woes weren't stopping there. Another friend said had lost his job. Though he'd pretended to have it all under control, it was clear he was scrambling. Without her steady income, was stuck. One evening I got a message from, "I really need to talk, it's important." I hesitated, then responded, "Is everything okay?" Her reply came quickly, "Not really, and I are going through a rough patch. I was wondering if you could help with a small loan." I couldn't help but laugh. She left me, ridiculed me, flaunted her new life with now she wanted my help. "Sorry to hear that, but I can't help," I answered. "I'm sure you'll figure things out." But she pushed, "Just this once, you don't have to make a big deal out of it." I ignored the message then. They made their bed and now they were lying in it. A week later, I heard they'd been evicted. The landlord, fed up, forced them out. They ended up in a tiny apartment on the outskirts. The mutual friend called again, describing the scene, barely holding it together, looking 10 years older. I didn't gloat. That wasn't about me anymore. It was about the natural consequences of their decisions. What didn't realize was I'd already started collecting more proof, texts, photos, even GPS logs. It was all there, waiting. Her confrontation with the public scene, her betrayal, everything. She thought she was winning. But in the end, karma was already at work. When I ran into at a grocery store one day, she looked exhausted, her once polished look replaced by something more defeated. Her cart was filled with generic brands, and when she saw me, she froze. She stammered, voice trembling. I kept my tone neutral. I said. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. She looked utterly defeated, her confidence, her smugness completely gone. I said softly, "I hope you're doing okay," and she nodded quickly, eyes darting away. "You too," she mumbled, pushing her cart away. Watching her walk off, I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and pity. She made her choices, and now she was trapped in the consequences. I didn't need to say or do anything. Life had already taken care of that. As I left the store, I realized something. Sometimes karma doesn't need a push. It just needs time. And when it arrives, it hits hard. It was only a matter of time before everything came crashing down because people like and don't handle consequences well. When their perfect illusion starts to fall apart, they lash out, searching for someone to blame. One morning, right after a client call, my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. I answered calmly, speaking. Her voice was tense, shaky. "We need to talk." I leaned back. "About what?" There was a pause, like she was trying to find the right words. "There's no us anymore. That ended the day you handed me divorce papers. What's this really about?" She hesitated again, lowering her voice. "We're struggling. Things haven't been easy since everything happened. I was wondering if you could help. Just a small loan to get us back on track." I could help but laugh quietly. "You left me because you thought I wasn't good enough, that I didn't work hard enough or make enough money. Now you want me to fix your mess." Her voice sharpened, defensiveness creeping in. "You don't understand, and I just hit a rough patch. Please, just this once." "No," I said firmly. "You made your choice. You left me for thinking he was the better option. And now you want me to clean up your mess. Not happening." She protested, but I cut her off. "You wanted to be free of me, of my lack of ambition. So enjoy it. I have no interest in being your safety net." I hung up. The next day she showed up at my office unannounced. She looked ragged, her polished appearance replaced by desperation. She called, ignoring my assistant's attempts to stop her. "We need to talk." I leaned back, crossing my arms. "You've got 2 minutes, make it count." She launched into a story about how unfair life was, how she and were just trying to make it work, and how she was only asking for a small favor. I interrupted her. "You made your choices. You left me for thinking she was upgrading your life. How's that working out for you?" Her face flushed with a mix of anger and embarrassment. "I know I hurt you, but you don't have to be so cruel. I thought you were better than this." I chuckled. "You thought I was a failure. You thought I wasn't good enough. And now you're here begging me for help because your so-called perfect life isn't so perfect after all. I owe you nothing." Just then walked in, coincidence or not, his timing was too perfect. He looked worse than disheveled, stressed, clearly out of his depth. He said, trying to sound casual, "Can we talk man to man?" I rose, walking across the room to face him. "Man to man? You mean like the way you lied behind my back while sleeping with my wife?" I said coldly. He winced. "Save it." He pressed on. "Me and made mistakes, but we're going through a rough patch. We thought maybe you'd be willing to help us out. Just a small loan." I shook my head and laughed again. "Unbelievable. You betrayed me, lied, and now you want me to bail you out. That's impressive." His face turned red, fists clenched. "You don't have to be a jerk about it." I stepped closer. "I don't owe you anything. You made your bed, now lie in it." Desperate, threw in a plea. "Please, we're really desperate." I looked at her coldly. "You made your choices. You're living with them. This conversation is over." I moved to the door, opened it, and motioned for them to leave. They hesitated, stunned, before shuffling out, heads hanging low. Once the door closed behind them, I felt the finality. They tried to manipulate me, guilt me into helping, but I was no fool. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about standing tall, knowing my worth, refusing to let those who betrayed me pull me down. Sitting back at my desk, I couldn't help but smile. They thought they'd broken me. Instead, they'd set me free. The beauty of betrayal is that it often turns against the betrayer, and believed they could escape their mess by sticking together, but the cracks in their illusion widened into gaping holes. Watching their ship sink was almost poetic. The first sign was from a mutual friend who always kept her ear to the ground. One afternoon she called me, practically giddy. "You won't believe this, been seeing someone else." I chuckled aloud. "Really? No way." Apparently caught him texting some young woman from his new job. She was carefree, uninterested in settling down. Had convinced himself she was worth risking everything. Of course, didn't take the betrayal quietly. She confronted him publicly, screams echoing through the trying to downplay it, got coffee thrown in his face. Just the image made me smile. That wasn't the end. The woman was texting. Not just some fling, she was someone he met at his new job, someone completely different, from young, carefree, and unattached. The impulsive fool had convinced himself she was worth everything. Reaction. She demanded answers, demanded he fix it. But fix things, that was never his style. Instead, he blamed for money troubles, called her demanding, and their arguments went on into the night. Eventually moved out. leaving in a dingy apartment unable to pay rent. She called again, voice shaking with fury and despair. "You were right," she admitted, voice raw. "'S a liar and a cheat. I can't believe I trusted him." I sat back, letting her spill her grievances. I could offered sympathy. Told her I understood, but what was the point? "You made your bed," I said coldly. "You chose over me, thinking he was the upgrade. How's that working out?" She was silent. I could hear her breath hitching. Finally, she whispered, "I need your help." "I told you," I responded. "You need to live with your choices." She hung up. From what I later learned, didn't come back. He moved in with his new girlfriend, who soon discovered he was just as unreliable as he was now couch surfing, unable to hold a job or a relationship. She was left with nothing, no job, no savings, no support system. Her family distanced themselves, tired of her drama, and even her friends started to drift away. The life she'd fought so hard to build, torn to shambles, and me, karma, had already done the work. The downfall of and wasn't a sudden explosion but a slow unraveling happening from the sidelines. Mutual friends kept whispering, more debt, more arguments, more regret. Social media reflected her ruined image, photos of lavish dinners and vacations turned into staged smiles, forced and fake. The cracks widened. One day I ran into at a grocery store. Her cart was filled with generic supplies, and when she saw me, she froze. She said, voice trembling. I kept my tone even. She hesitated, trying to say something but couldn't. Instead, she looked defeated, a shadow of the woman who once demanded a divorce and flaunted her affair. I managed to say, "I hope you're doing okay." She nodded quickly and turned away. Watching her walk off, I felt a strange mixture, satisfaction, yes, but also pity. She had made her choices, and now she was trapped by them. No words needed to be spoken. Life had already delivered its lessons. As I left the store, it hit me. Sometimes karma doesn't need a push. It just needs patience. And when that moment comes, it hits harder than any fist. And this world built on lies and betrayal. And now it was crumbling beautifully, inevitably. Eventually, it all came to a head. I knew it was coming. They couldn't handle the fallout. Their illusion of success was cracking. They lashed out, blaming others, seeking to escape responsibility. One morning, right after a client call, my phone buzzed, an unfamiliar number. I almost ignored it, but curiosity won out. I answered calmly. Came her shaky voice. "We need to talk." "About what?" I asked, leaning back. She hesitated. "And we're struggling. Everything's falling apart." I was hopping. "Maybe you could help, just a little loan." I shook my head, smiling. "You left me because you thought I wasn't enough, that I didn't work hard or make enough money. Now you want me to fix your mess." Her tone sharpened. "You don't understand. We're just having a hard time. Please, just once." "No," I replied definitively. "You chose this. You wanted freedom, freedom from me, from a life you thought I couldn't give you. Well, enjoy it. I have no interest in being your safety net." I hung up. The next week I learned they'd been evicted. The landlord finally gave them a firm deadline they couldn't meet. They moved into a tiny, rundown place on the outskirts. A mutual friend told me, "You should see it. It's a world apart from the life they faked. It's barely holding it together, and he looks like he aged 10 years. I didn't gloat. That wasn't the point. Their ruin was the consequence of their own choices, trading stability for fantasy, chasing illusions. The lesson was obvious. Later I ran into again, this time at the grocery store. Her cart was filled with cheap basics, and when she saw me, she froze. She said, voice trembling. I stayed neutral. She hesitated, eyes darting away. No words. Her defeated posture said everything. I simply said, "I hope you're doing okay," and let her go. Watching her walk off, I felt a strange sense, satisfaction, yes, but also pity. She made her choices. Now she was paying the price. No need for words. Life had already spoken. And as I left, I understood. Sometimes karma is patient, and it doesn't need anyone to push it along. It just waits, then delivers its blow. And they thought they were getting away, but the cracks were already there, widening each day. And I kept thriving. My work flourished, my life was peaceful, and my future brighter than ever. The greatest revenge is living well, and I was proving it every single day. They'd burned the bridges behind them, but I'd already begun building a better one ahead. After the divorce, I made a promise. I wouldn't let their betrayal define me. I would rise above it, not just for revenge, but for my own peace. So I invested in myself. I upgraded my apartment to a sleek modern penthouse in the city's heart, floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, a view that reminded me how far I'd come. It wasn't just a home, it was a statement, a symbol of my new life. My career, already stable, began to thrive even more. Freed from constant criticism and backstabbing, I threw myself into work. New clients, new contracts, opportunities I'd never imagined. Speaking engagements, partnerships, investments, all opportunities to succeed quietly, confidently. My annual income skyrocketed past $500, $0. More importantly, I started rebuilding socially. Old friends reconnected, new ones entered my life, people who genuinely valued me. I attended events, networked, even took weekend trips for fun. Most importantly, I learned to value myself. For years, I'd poured everything into trying to meet impossible standards, losing sight of my worth. Now I was reclaiming that. Therapy helped too. It wasn't just about talking, it was about healing. My therapist once told me, "You're not responsible for other people's choices, only how you respond to them." Those words became my mantra. I also rediscovered my creative side, writing and photography. I launched a blog, a mix of personal journal and professional insights that gained traction. People resonated with my story of rebuilding and turning pain into progress. Every now and then I'd hear whispers about and how they'd fallen further into debt, how their arguments grew louder, how regret sat heavy on them. One mutual friend even told me, "You wouldn't believe it, been texting someone else." Caught him and she totally lost it, threw her coffee right at him in public. I couldn't help but laugh. It was almost poetic. The woman who once gloated about leaving me for an upgrade was now publicly humiliated, throwing her latte in a parking lot. Wasn't just cheating, he was with someone else, a girl from his new job, so reckless, so impulsive, convinced she was worth everything. And she didn't take it quietly. She demanded answers, demanded he fix it. But fixing things was never his strength. Instead, he blames demands and their money troubles. Their shouting matches became a regular thing, even heard through the walls of their apartment. Eventually, he moved out, leaving stranded with no money, no support. Her calls to me grew more desperate. She finally admitted was a liar and a cheat, and she couldn't believe she'd ever trusted him. I just listened, letting her vent. I could offer sympathy, but really, what was the point? "You made your choice," I told her. "You left me for thinking he was the upgrade. How's that working out now?" She went silent, out of breath, defeated. Then finally she whispered that she needed help. But I told her, "You need to accept the consequences of your decisions. I'm not your safety net." She hung up. Later, I heard no longer lived at her place, moved in with a new girlfriend who soon realized he was just as unreliable as he was, couch surfing, jobless and single. She was left with nothing, no savings, no job, no support. Her family disowned her, her friends drifted away. The life she fought for, gone, ashes, and me, I'd already let karma do its work. Their fall wasn't a sudden explosion, it was a slow leak, a gradual decay that I watched from afar. Gossip, social media updates, each one painted a clearer picture. Luxurious posts became fewer, less genuine. Her once perfect photos showed strain, the cracks in there widened. One day I saw again at the grocery store. Her cart was filled with bland, generic brands, and when she saw me, she froze. She whispered, voice trembling. I stayed calm. I said. She opened her mouth, but no words came. She looked broken, no longer the confident, smug woman who had demanded her divorce. I simply said, "I hope you're doing okay," and walked away, feeling a complex mixture. Satisfaction, yes, but also pity. She made her choices, and now she was paying. No need to confront or rub it in. Life had already done that for both of us. And I understood something crucial. Sometimes karma doesn't need your help, it just needs patience. And when it arrives, it hits harder than any blow you could throw. And they thought they could escape the consequences, but the cracks in their world would never disappear. Meanwhile, I kept thriving. My work, my life, everything the way I'd always wanted it, living well, proving that I was more than what they thought. I had built something real, something proud. The chapter with "and" closed. This was my story now, and I was writing it deliberately on my own terms.